we are, by golly. Greetings, everybody. It's me, Bob Harris, senior editor at footballdiehards.com. I'm joined by Emil, the proprietor, the chief bottle washer, and head scientist at said establishment. Emil, how are you doing this fine Friday evening as we head into week 6? Are you with me?
I'm doing well. Sorry, I don't know if I've got two things going on at once. Still production error. I'm listening to two things delayed. Sorry about that. Doing great. It was a great week.
Yeah, we started off with an interesting game. The New England Patriots finally handling their business. Their great defense taking over. I thought young Daniel Jones had a few brief moments. That pass to Golden Tate, he was throwing into some tight windows, kind of living up to his moniker, but that defense was a little much. He was a little undermanned. We'll see if they can get it together going forward. The New England Patriots obviously already have it together, even when you can't figure it out. Just when you thought it was a Sony Michel night. Hello, Brandon Bolden. Seemed like it could have been a huge night, but
always give us trouble.
Yes, we'll move forward and look ahead. Then there's some stories we want to touch on. We're going to get to your questions here. So if you're on Periscope or on Twitter and see this, jump on board. We'll hook you up with that. We'll take some questions at the end. But we'll start out with the first story that we have is Todd Gurley, listed as doubtful. Seems very unlikely he'll play. Although Sean McVay is kind of maybe dialing it back a little bit this afternoon, basically saying they'll take it right up until game time. It is an early afternoon kickoff, which is unusual for a West Coast game. They're playing the San Francisco 49ers. Also in that game, George Kittle is listed as questionable. I expect he'll play. But it seems like Todd Gurley will be out. So, Emil, that being the case, how do you view Malcolm Brown in this one?
Well, I think he could do really well. I mean, RB2, flex, whatever. I think he's definitely worth a start. They need to win. They need to play well, and they're going to use that guy. Now, Darrell Henderson is supposed to have a chance to play as per your reports. The last time I saw that guy, he just didn't seem ready. I think obviously they're going to try and get him going somewhat, but I still think Malcolm Brown's the guy you want to play.
Yeah, opportunities are key for these guys in all cases. I kind of agree with you. I view Malcolm Brown as pretty much a running back too, with some upside. I mean, especially in standard leagues, you would think you could get a really good touchdown potential. That turns out the 49ers pretty tough on defense, so that's maybe a bit of an issue for them. But again, I think we'll see what goes on. Brandon Cooks, by the way, is off the injury report altogether, cleared from his concussion. So we'll be watching on Gurley. The truth is, whatever Sean McVay is saying, players listed as doubtful rarely play. It's a very rare occurrence. So expect that to be the case. We do get the benefit, though, and again, it's unusual for the West Coast game to be played in the early hours. So as always, head to footballdiehards.com, where we will have the inactive announcements in real time as they come, and we'll have that one as well. One we won't have until later in the day. And by the way, same with Kittle. Again, I expect he will play. But later in the day, we have the Arizona Cardinals hosting the Atlanta Falcons. David Johnson listed as questionable in this one, Emil, along with Christian Kirk and Amir Byrd. Sounds like Kirk is trending towards playing. It also sounds like David Johnson is trending towards playing. These are always tough situations with the late afternoon kickoff, unless you have a viable fallback plan in the late afternoon time frame, Sunday night, Monday night. It can put you in a pinch if there's a last-minute scratch for a questionable designated player. But let's say David Johnson does play. This Atlanta Falcons defense is known for being generous over the years, especially with Dan Quinn at the helm, for being generous defenses to opposing running backs as receivers. How confident are you in David Johnson's role in this game, assuming he plays going up against the Falcons?
Yeah, you can always worry about he plays and then he leaves the game because he wasn't quite ready. I think if they're going to play him, you want to go with him. He's had incredible numbers, all except for week 2. I forget who it was against. I got it on my tab, but I'm too lazy to look at it. Chase Edmonds can do really well if he does play also, but right. I think you got to roll with David Johnson if he plays. Again, these late afternoon games like the Rams game, you're going to make your decision before we'll really get the final word. Obviously, if you've got Chase Edmonds as your backup to David Johnson, then you're set. You can wait till game time and the afternoon games and make your decision. But I would roll with David Evans if he's playing.
David Johnson. Yeah, one of the things you mentioned, it was that week 2 game against Baltimore where he was held
That's
to single digits.
Yeah, that
in
hurt.
PPR scoring and standard league scoring. Other than that, he's hit over 20 twice, close to 20 twice. I think he had 18 a couple times in PPR format. So this offense is our buddy Kyle Dvorak loves to get in on these high-paced, high-volume offenses, and that's one of the things about the air raid offense. They're trying to run a high snap rate.
Week 1, David Johnson had 25 PPR, then 8 against Baltimore, then 18, 21, and 18. That's
so it's been pretty solid.
Really good production.
So in other words, get yourself a fallback plan, people, because you want to play David Johnson if he's going against the Falcons. They've been a little tougher this year, to their credit, against running backs in general and receiving running backs, but still not fantastic. So that's a game we'll all be watching again. I'll have all those inactives in the 90 minutes leading up to that late afternoon window. One of the earlier kickoffs, Alvin Kamara turned up as questionable today. They held him out of practice Friday. He was limited Thursday. Sounds like he tweaked an ankle Thursday. The reporting NFL Network's Tom Pelissero is basically reporting that they held him out today as a precaution. One of the things we will know, they'll catch a plane to Jacksonville Saturday afternoon. So, again, check the website. I'll have that information if he does not make that flight. Or if he does, we'll have that posted. This is an interesting game, in that Jacksonville's not very good against the run. It seems Jalen Ramsey should be back, so maybe that funnels a little more work to Alvin Kamara. How do you feel about this matchup in general, Emil?
Well, I'm worried about Kamara after Breeze is gone. His numbers aren't great. He had a 17 PPR points last week against Tampa Bay and 11 against Dallas. I think you just got to run with them. You paid the price as a number 1 draft pick. Unless you've got a super team and you can avoid this guy, you just got to play him and just hope that he overcomes the situation.
I think it's interesting. One of the things you mentioned is, whose numbers haven't been hurt is Michael Thomas. He seems to be faring pretty well regardless. I mean, the first few weeks it was pretty steady, 22 PPR, 18, 16, 18. Last week came up with 41 again with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm. So he's obviously faring pretty well. You wonder if Jalen Ramsey's back. Is he really full speed? He'll be listed as questionable for this game. So, and they also have A.J. Bowie. So it's a pretty good secondary. So I just wonder if this isn't an opportunity for Kamara, whether it's as a runner or a receiver, to get the job done in this one, maybe a little better than what we've seen the last few weeks. That's more a hope as a invested Kamara owner than probably the realistic possibility. Another game we've got, Emil, is the Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Houston Texans. Look, Deshaun Watson coming off a huge game. Such a great game. They're sending his cleats to the Hall of Fame. 5 touchdowns, 400-plus yards, only fewer than 5 incompletions. Will Fuller finally having his huge game. They go into a Kansas City Arrowhead Stadium, where it's pretty tough to play notoriously. But on the other side of the ball is where we're greatly interested. We have Tyreek Hill has a chance to come back. How comfortable would you be? He is a game-time decision. It's an early afternoon kickoff, so we'll know plenty in advance. Also, Sammy Watkins listed as doubtful, almost certainly will not play. But let's say Tyreek Hill plays. How comfortable are you rolling him right back into your lineup this week?
Wow, that's a tough one. I would be tempted to play him. Obviously, it'd be great to wait an extra week to see what happens, but you've missed so much time. And again, it depends on your roster. If you've got some guys that you could put in for another week, it would be smart to do that. But if they're playing him, I'm starting him.
I'm playing him. Yeah, I'm playing the hell out of him. Look, Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of things better. And I guess one of the concerns for me is, what would our expectations be if there is no Tyreek Hill and no Sammy Watkins? We saw Byron Pringle come out of nowhere last week and fare really well. I mean, Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of things better, but he's coming off a couple, lesser games himself. Their offensive line issues, their own defense very beat up. I wonder if this game couldn't get out of hand pretty quickly. Maybe I want it to, because I want Pat Mahomes throwing. But as you've watched the last couple of weeks, Emil, how do you feel about Mahomes' ankle? Do you feel like it's been more of an issue than maybe they're letting on, or they'd like us to believe? I mean, clearly it's an issue.
I think it's a definite issue, but really, if you go back to last week's game against Indianapolis dominated in the trenches on both offense and defense. They were in there before the ball got in there sometimes, and I don't think obviously I think the ankles hurt them, but the control of the offensive line and the defensive line is something Kansas City can't let that happen again. I think that was the critical moment, and what they can do against the Texans, I really don't know. But that was a glaring issue in that game against Indianapolis, and they got to fix that. They got to give them a little bit of time, and I definitely think the ankle's a problem. I'm a little surprised too that Byron Pringle was doing more than Herndon was doing, but maybe he was just, I don't know why, but like you said, if Sammy's out and Hill's out, this Pringle guy, I don't know if he can trust him another week in a row, but he definitely got a lot of targets.
I think you can trust anyone. I mean, trust is the wrong word, but you can have hope that anybody playing with Pat Mahomes can be great. But I mean, it has been a night and day thing, and it does coincide with the ankle. The first 3 games had a completion percentage over 65, over 350 yards passing, and 3 or more TDs in each of those first 3 games. The last 2, the completion percentage below 60, less than 350 yards, and just 1 TD pass over those 2 games. So, hoping he reverts to more of that first 3-week Patrick Mahomes. And I don't know that it's all been on him. And look, he still has great weapons. Travis Kelce is still fantastic. The running backs all capable of contributing as receivers and runners. But I think you're right. You mentioned something about it in the trenches, and with that beat up Kansas City defense, I'm reckoning we'll see a fair amount of Carlos Hyde. But as long as they can protect, and with a diminished pass rush, maybe they can, Deshaun Watson, he is going to be a busy man. I like him an awful lot this week. One more injury situation I want to touch on before we get to questions is Davante Adams. Interesting, this morning, Friday morning, came out the report in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel where he basically said, look, this is a pretty serious injury, right? It's a turf toe, means there's something torn in there, still in a lot of pain, not where he wants to be. They still have until Monday. My guess is they hold him out this week. We heard this wasn't a bad injury, but that doesn't make it a great injury. So Aaron Rodgers a little beat up in this one. He's been limited this week in practice with the knee. Jamal Williams looks like he'll return, but Marquez Valdez-Scantling missing a little bit of time. Look, so how is this offense going to work? We saw last week. It wasn't pretty last week, was it, Emil?
No, it wasn't. I'll flip this chart up from the box score, just the receivers. And so if you're looking for somebody you can go to this week, with Davante Adams out, it's kind of muddy here if you just look at the receivers. Well, Jimmy Graham got 3 targets, got them all for 41 yards. Geronimo Allison got 6 targets, but only caught 2 for 28. Valdez-Scantling only had 1 catch, 4 targets. You're like going, who's my savior on my fantasy team here? And it points at Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had a huge rushing game and a huge receiving game. So, obviously it looks like it's helping Aaron Jones, although Jimmy Graham is probably still a guy you want to consider, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers is ready to go in this game.
Yeah, I think the issue there was it was not enough receptions, right, by the wide receivers. It's kind of interesting. I think it was what do we have? We had 2. The running backs outproduced everybody easily. And that's kind of a surprise in terms of receiving as well as the rushing, obviously, the 4-touchdown game for Jones. So it's a pretty tough game. It'll be interesting against the Detroit Lions if they don't have their full cadre, and I don't think they will. That'll be another one. You're going to want to have a pivot in that game if you're gonna go with Davante Adams, and I think I think you're kind of getting out in front of yourself if you do. I think that'll take some chances. All right, Emil. So let's hit out. We're live on Periscope right now. We're out there on Twitter. If you have any questions, ask us. We'll jump on them. Do we have anything?
Not yet not on Periscope. There's a ton of people there, but nobody's asking questions, which is stunning because they usually do.
Fire us some questions. We'll get those. I've got a few questions on my Twitter feed that we can get to in this case. There's a couple of interesting ones. Someone needs Chandler 28138 at Cam Rock 23. He's in a full PPR. He needs to sit 1. Michael Thomas against Jacksonville, Cooper Kupp against San Francisco, DJ Chark against New Orleans, and Will Fuller against Kansas City. That's a tough call. He's just so we can start out with a little groundwork. He's leaning towards sitting Cooper Kupp against San Francisco, which I kind of get. It's a pretty tough matchup.
Wow,
man, that's a tough call.
I would probably dismiss Fuller before I would do Kupp. Kupp's had 4 100-yard games, and I know San Francisco's playing extremely well. But Fuller is a hit and miss guy. He's a tournament DFS perfect guy because he can have 1 for 8 yards or he can do what he did last week. So I would be tempted to lean at Fuller. What an incredible 4 receivers that guy's got.
Right. I mean, that's always a problem. Maybe at some point you start thinking about working a trade out for someone. And I do think that, for me, I'm not sitting Cooper Kupp. I am sitting Fuller as well. Although DJ Chark's maybe an option if you're worried about Marshawn Lattimore shadowing him. I'm not so much. Just say something about Chark. I mean, a guy is getting tons of air yards, which is a great indicator of production. But he is playing like a true wide receiver one. Gardner Minshew obviously has a hand in this, and he's doing a great job of fueling that fire. But if you'll remember, I mean, Chark started out even before Minshew was playing. I think he caught the touchdown pass that Nick Foles was actually injured on. So,
yeah,
boy, that's I mean, he's playing like a true wide receiver one. I think it's hard to sit
I got a question here on Periscope when you're ready.
Oh, go ahead.
Says it's Trev Mike writes on Periscope, with a possible limiting Kamara on Sunday, would you play Latavius Murray over Devontae Freeman as RB2?
Yeah, I mean, boy, limiting. I think you're almost reaching a little bit on that one. I don't think the Cardinals' defense is that imposing that I'd probably make that pivot fully, unless Kamara was ruled out. If Kamara is absolutely, ruled out, declared inactive in advance of the game, then I do think Latavius Murray is a good play. It's interesting. Latavius Murray didn't practice today, and they said it was for personal reasons. I almost wondered if it wasn't like, hey, let's keep somebody healthy just in case. And the local reporting is that's not necessarily what it was. So I don't want to get too far in front of that. But yeah, I think he's a more viable play if there is no Kamara at all. I hate, when you count on someone being limited, I mean, without that clarity of knowing, we're not there. We can't see what that ankle looks like. We don't know, how he's going to be able to run. Maybe we'll get a little whiff of something in pregame warm-ups. The observers on the field will give us a little information, tell us what's going on. But we've even seen that kind of go south on us earlier in the season when the Chiefs reporters all got very excited at the pecking order of pregame warm-ups, that it turned out to totally not be that way. So I don't like to get too far in front of these. I'd probably stick with Freeman if it was me.
I agree.
How do you feel about that one?
I think you stick with Freeman unless something major occurs. The nice thing about the New Orleans game, it's the early game. So if something happens other than what we already know, like Kamara being extremely limited or obviously going out, you can make it. I would go with Freeman. I was just looking at the numbers. Freeman's Arizona's, it's at Arizona, but their rushing defense is not that good. It's like the 29th on our ranking system. Got another question here, a simple one.
Go ahead.
Rodgers or Rivers? By Frank
Rivers.
White.
I mean, for me, this is pretty simple. With the number one, this offense is not really what we've known it to be in the past. The Packers offense. We saw last week what happened. Well, we've actually had a pretty good 2-week image of what's going on since we saw what the offense looked like with Devontae Adams against Philadelphia, and then what happened after Adams left. I mean, they couldn't punch the ball in the end zone. They struggled mightily. Then we saw against Dallas the adjustments that were made, went very run heavy. It was a Jones-centric game plan, whether, or an Aaron-centric. I mean, it was Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, but mostly Aaron Jones. So my guess is they'll follow that same approach if there is no Adams. And not knowing that in advance, if I knew for sure Adams was playing and 100%, maybe I would go with Aaron Rodgers. But I think in this case, you have a really good fallback in Phillip Rivers, especially going against Pittsburgh, who for some reason has never figured out how to cover Keenan Allen. If you remember last year, they even tried linebackers, and it did not work. It did not work. I don't think they'll be trying the linebackers again, but I don't know if they can cover Keenan Allen. So I'm probably leaning Phillip Rivers in that one.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Our cheat sheet is a little different than that, but that's okay. I think, what Aaron Jones did last week, you can read a lot in it. You don't have to read a lot in it. But with Adams out, if they can run, they're going to run, and that's going to limit Rodgers. So that's another factor that may really come into play. But
right.
Rivers,
I mean,
go ahead.
The truth is they struggled to get the ball in the end zone through the air. We saw it. I mean, against Philadelphia, I mean, it just was like it evaporated. We saw it to a degree last week too, with the wideouts and the tight ends all struggling to match the production of the running backs, even as receivers. So, look, Aaron Rodgers has a lot of history on his side. I know our algorithms love him, and the matchup is not, totally miserable, although I think Matt Patricia's got that defense dialed in a little better. I think more of this is a case of, just looking at kind of the circumstances, not the least of which is Aaron Rodgers has been limited with his knee injury as well. A lot of times, and by a lot of times, almost every time, I'm going to play a fully healthy guy who's starting earlier over a less than healthy guy playing later. I just don't want to put myself in a bind and be in a position, look, anyone can get hurt in the middle of a game, right? We all know that going in. So why take a chance on playing a guy who's not fully 100% before the game even starts? That's kind of always my approach in general.
Sounds good. You got any questions on your Twitter?
Sure. Gerald Everett or Jared Cook in a points per reception format?
Whoa. Wow.
Let's say Gerald Everett has come on strong. It's been the last 2 games. The numbers have been phenomenal. You probably have them in front of you, Emil, if I don't. But the targets have been high. The number of times they've been going in 2 tight end sets, like quite a bit. The last game they were like more than they have, I think, all season combined. They were in that 12 personnel package. So, but Everett, I think, is a guy who it looks like you're kind of chasing the recent points, maybe a little recency bias. But then again, on the other side of the ball with Cook, what are you chasing? Not a hell of a lot.
No, and they both they're both playing against really good defenses. So I don't know if that nulls itself out or whatnot. Everett hasn't done it as long, but what has Cook done? He's kind of, a little here, a little there.
4, 1, 5, 14 last week against Tampa Bay. It was a pretty good game, but it was a pretty good offensive output by Teddy Bridgewater, unusually good.
And here's Everett. In the last 2 games, 8 targets, 5 catches. He got a touchdown in week 4. 11 targets, 7 catches, 36 points at Seattle. You don't know what's going to happen. It's only been 2 weeks where they're starting to use them, but I would be tempted to go Everett.
Though. I would too for the upside. Again, they're going to be a little shorthanded in the backfield. We'll be looking to make up for that. But one thing that I like to remind people is, what got one of the things that Sean McVay put him on the map was his use of Jordan Reed in Washington. And one of the things he did when he got his head coaching job was he found some athletic tight ends. He hasn't quite got that dialed in yet, unless he has the last 2 games, right? So I'd probably take a chance on Gerald Everett right now.
I got another question on Periscope from the Mike Wrights guy again. Delaney Walker, Noah Fant, or take a chance on Hunter Henry?
No, not on Hunter Henry this week, and I'll tell you why. I mean, Anthony Lynn's been pretty transparent about how he's handling these things, like Melvin Gordon coming back. We're only going to use him in emergency against Miami. There were no emergencies. He did not get used. Last week he said we're going to bring him in slowly. They brought him in pretty slowly, right? Austin Eckler still handled the lead. He said this week that we'll see more Melvin Gordon, and I suspect we will. He also said that if Hunter Henry is active, it'll be a limited role. So, by limited role, do I suspect it would be, in high leverage, favorable situations, maybe near the goal line? Probably so, but I'm not taking that chance. I think the other guys he mentioned, look, Delaney Walker, it's been kind of minimal. I think the targets have been not very good the last 2 games. I think he has 4 targets combined over the last 2 games.
Yep.
If memory serves me correctly. There is talk had Teron Davenport from ESPN, the Titans beat writer on the program today, the Football Diehards on Sirius. And, we talked about this and said, are they going to try and course correct a little bit, get Delaney Walker more involved? He thinks they will, but until they do, I don't know. I think I might go the other direction.
Well, yeah, it's a tough matchup for Walker at Denver, 5th best defense, passing or receiving, whatever defense.
Fant, the sudden upside of Fant. He's suddenly looking like a
He's playing at home. Tennessee's a good defense, but they're a little bit average right now against the pass. He certainly would be, your potential upside. Well, they both have upside, but I guess you got to try and go with Fant and hope you can get lucky at home.
Yeah, I think Fant is the direction I'd go. I'd love to. I'm one of the biggest Delaney Walker backers in the world. It just isn't happening right now, and until it is, I think I'm going to dial back. What else you got?
That's it for now. Anything on Twitter? I'll check in a minute here.
Need 2 to start two quarterbacks, a two-quarterback league, so he's going to bench one of these. Gardner Minshew, Matthew Stafford, or Phillip Rivers.
Wow.
Matthew Stafford's been, we should just say, Matthew Stafford's been playing pretty good. To date, they brought in Darrell Bevell to be the offensive coordinator, known for his run-heavy attacks. And they do run the ball a fair amount, but Matthew Stafford maybe has been a little more effective in picking and choosing his shots. I think he's had a 100-yard receiver, a different guy in each game so far this season. And Green Bay's defense, that's maybe a little tough. I'm probably leaning towards Minshew and Rivers in this one myself.
Well, it's a real toss-up. Minshew's ranked higher. They're playing at home, but New Orleans has been really strong. They're really on a roll. Minshew's been such an interesting guy.
I think one of the things about Minshew, one of the things that I've seen, that I've been thinking about with this game in particular, is the Saints are really effective at stopping the run, and I think they've been forcing teams to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be the case for Jacksonville, and I mean that brings into play beyond Minshew. I mean, I love Chark. I think Leonard Fournette, who's been running a ton of routes and been a factor in the passing game, maybe makes up for some of the running shortcomings this week by serving as a receiver. So I think this is I'm going Minshew and Rivers, and Stafford's going to sit this one out for me.
I'm tempted to agree with you on that one. It's a tough one. I think you could go with any of those, but I agree with you.
All right, scrolling down here a little bit. I have a few more. All right. Trade offer.
Oh, boy.
Offered Mike Williams and Joe Mixon for A.J. Green? What? 1/2 by PPR, you'd have to draw. I'm reading
what? Mixon
that doesn't even make sense. Offered Mike Williams and Joe Mixon for A.J. Who else is A.J.? Oh, is there another A.J.?
How about Aaron Jones?
Maybe so. That's got to be it. Let's assume that's it, because I can't imagine A.J. Green.
Yeah.
By the way, people, when you're asking Twitter questions, sometimes use entire names.
At least one of them.
Questions.
Aaron J. would have worked.
Yeah. Wow. And he'd have to drop Alexander Madison or Latavius Murray to clear the roster room to do this deal.
So do you trust Aaron Jones? I mean, obviously he's not going to do four touchdowns. Do you trust Aaron Jones to be really kind of a low-end running back one if you want to make this trade? That's a bit of an aggressive trade.
I want the Aaron Jones side of this deal. Look, Mixon is running behind a horrible offensive line. He's not getting a lot of big plays. I like Mike Williams, okay. Maybe if you're really weak at wide receiver, I mean, Mixon would still give you the volume play. But boy, that offensive line's bad. I'm almost thinking I'd stand pat. So
if you have a solid receiving core, then maybe it's going to improve if it's going to improve your team because you got a better running back and you got a solid receiving core. Okay, I can accept that trade.
If you're going to start Mike Williams and Joe Mixon every week, and then maybe you can let Aaron Jones go. You're getting two good players, or two at least players with solid workloads for one guy who's coming off a huge game, and maybe that's what you're trying to do, leverage this huge 4-touchdown game. But I kind of like to have Aaron Jones on my roster. I think he's going to be really solid the rest of the year. I don't know that Joe Mixon is, but in general, it's a 2-player for one deal, so you're probably in your best interest to do that deal if you're getting starters.
We got a defensive question: Baltimore, San Francisco, or the Panthers?
I'm probably going to play San Francisco in this one. Number one, I love the disruptive playmaking ability they demonstrated against Cleveland. Number two, it's a depleted Rams offense. I'm guessing without Todd Gurley, I don't know, it's not like he's been the focal point of this offense. Kind of has for moments, but in general, the workload hasn't quite been there. But I'm still thinking I'll do this. I think the Rams offensive line has been causing some issues. It's been easy to pressure Jared Goff, and that's what I'm looking for when I'm playing defenses. I want those disruptive defenses that are able to make some plays and put some points on the board.
Well, Baltimore's at home playing against Cincinnati. And I know they haven't been playing that well, but that's a weak opponent, and they play better at home. So I'm going to go with Baltimore in this one.
I'm not. I'm sticking with San Francisco. Look, you make a good point. It's against Cincinnati. They're not very good. They've just given up so many yards.
And Carolina's playing against Tampa Bay. It's at Tampa Bay, so there's another possibility.
It's in London, actually. So
Yeah.
So
it's early.
both teams will be kind of, it's 9:30 a.m. Eastern kickoff.
I'm going Baltimore. I'm going to go Baltimore. Although I love San Francisco's defense.
I have a good one here. Dynasty question.
Yes.
Would you trade Aaron Jones and Kenny Golladay for Odell Beckham and Josh Jacobs?
Wow. I would go for Beckham and Jacobs off the top of my head.
I think I would too.
Yeah. I think Jacobs has got, obviously he's a rookie, and I think he's proven that he can be a guy who they go to. Beckham, you just got to hope that Baker can become can continue to progress and give ODB his chances, because you give ODB his chances, you know what he can do.
I hear you.
Upside's great for that trade, in my opinion.
All right. Do we have another question on the Periscope?
Not right now. We don't.
All right. Well, maybe we'll take this opportunity to wrap things up and remind everyone to hit the footballdiehards.com website on a regular basis. Tons of updates, a constant flow of news and information available for you, in addition to some great columns, some by myself, DFS 3 and Out, but also Gary Davenport with either his IDP tip sheet or the Shadow Nose, great article on shadow coverage each week. We've got Bobby Gomes and Kyle Dvorchak doing live videos, including Sunday morning in advance of kickoff, and their Wednesday night roster build show. You want to check both of those out. The Football Diehards podcast, of course, with Kyle, Justin, myself. Justin's digging into Craig's column, Kyle's DFS columns, Brad Cruz, one of the best high-stakes players out there, giving you his sit starts both Thursday and Sunday. We have Mike Valverde doing the stock performance reports, Matthew Sharon and Evan Tarciano doing waiver wire work, and, of course, John Lau putting out the scholars, the Gridiron Scholars sheet of draft book knowledge every Saturday. Don't miss that. Also hit the site on Saturday for my injury review and preview video. Listen to the Football Diehards on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio every weeknight at 6 p.m. Also catch us on SiriusXM NFL Radio, 8 to 11 Eastern on Saturday nights. Me and Mike Dempsey catch me on SiriusXM Fantasy Football pregame show with Jeff Manns. And hit the website. In addition to the live video, we'll have the live inactives coming in all morning long. We're all through each kickoff in the 90 minutes leading up to each kickoff. And always hit us up Friday night for this video. We want to get more questions, get a little more interaction involved. So be ready with your questions next time. We'll look forward to hearing them. Emil, thank you so much for the evening.
It was a blast. It's going to be a great weekend.
Good luck, everybody.